Hi, Tony. Hi, Dominic, Thomas, John. How you doing? How's the is the audio and video? Is everything working okay? Bonjour. Okie doke. Checking the sound and stuff. Everybody all right? Can you hear me? Sound, audio? Okay, well, let me see. Uh-oh. For some reason, the boy, oh boy, oh boy, the text is not working. Let me check something here. Ah, there we go. Okay, got it now. All righty, right. Okie doke. Hello. I wasn't able to see the text for a second there because there was an arrow that had to hit. So sorry. Oh, hey Graham, Rich, William, Thomas. Okay, great. Hey Tony. Okie doke. Andres, how are you? Okay. All right. Everything is squared away. Um. All right. There's this weird thing on the text part that was is a little goofy. It's okay now. Hello, Tuna. How you doing, man? Okie doke. Let me start off with a couple observations. I think it was 1969, sometime around there. And you can correct me if I have the dates wrong, but um, Seiko came out with a quartz watch, and they took a there was an annual chronometer testing in Switzerland at that time, and every year they'd go out and the different watch companies would bring their watches, and they would see who had the best timing and so forth, the best chronometer. So Seiko comes out with their quartz watch and just blew everybody away. I mean, just kabam. And I think they may have had it for one more year and they quit because the quartz watches were so high. Oh, okay. Thanks, Thomas. Um, hey Tim, how you doing? So anyway, I one of the things that the Swiss had to do was to do something to save one of their major industries, namely watchmaking. So they started coming out with a number of things to make the mechanical watches more attractive. Okay, so they started saying, "Well, we're going to have this super hierology," sort of like they borrowed a term from high fashion, uh, haute, what is it, haute couture, I think, for high fashion. So they're going to have haute horology. So and so it was going to be something. They're going to make watches that were more than just timekeepers. They were sort of, on the one hand, status statements, uh, really an emphasis on uh, craftsmanship and all of the other good things that are going on. Hi, Guillermo. Floodland, how are you? Total Power, is that right? Total at Power, JJ, hi. Okay, so anyway, so this is how we sort of got to some point where we have sort of there's sort of a split. I think there's a three-way split now. On the one hand, you've got what I'll call traditional mechanical watchmaking. That's one. Then you have quartz watches. That's two. And now you have smartwatches. That's three. And of all of those, smartwatches appear to be way ahead of everything else. Now, if we look at the hertz rate, um, the other day I had a video on springs and the semi oscillations per hour, also referred to as VPH. And I think that the most popular one for mechanical watches is 4 hertz, which is 28,800 semi oscillations per hour. Okay. The uh, 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 the number of hertz reflects the number of seconds. 4 hertz, for example, is 4 total oscillations per second. VPH refers to hour. All right. Now, a quartz watch is 32,768 hertz. That's per second. That's the vibration of a quartz. And so an electrical current going through a piece of quartz, which essentially is silicon and oxygen, it vibrates at 32,768,000 vibrations per second. So, I mean, like, no wonder mechanical watches using mechanical hairsprings and so forth didn't stand a chance, and they still don't. I mean, you have these guys; they have up to 6, 7 hertz and things like that. I think there's one that's way up there. Still aren't touching quartz yet. All right. So the question is, if what are you after here? I mean, okay, so you've got your um, using using traditional uh, mechanical methods, you're sort of pushing things along. Okay. So how do you improve it to even with quartz? Well, this is going back to 1969. How do we make a mechanical watch with that accuracy? And the answer is you don't. Okay. You go out and get a $10 quartz watch. You go and get a smart watch. My wife has a fairly, I guess, what's sort of one of the top of the line Apple watches. They're less, I mean, a mechanical watch at the same price would be considered to be less than mediocre. I mean, you got a cheap watch, okay? But an Apple Watch, the top price that they have, unless I don't know if they have them in gold yet or not, but so you get here we have this big announcement yesterday or sometime earlier this week that Omega has come out with a spy rate or something like that, and this was an adjustable hairspring made of silicon. All right. Well, I suppose that when they put in silicon hairsprings, there's two different ways to look at it. Rolex and H. Moser didn't. there are a lot of watches, especially your higher level watches, that are using H. Moser hairsprings. They're called Strawman hairsprings, named after the guy who was, I think, worked on inventing certain aspects of the hairspring. They're made out of transitional metals, both the Rolex and the H. Moser. H. Moser. I said the other day, I said H. Moser at sea. You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say et compagnie, which is I'll try to get that right. So here we have these people yelling and screaming about how their watch is off a couple seconds. And the thing is that you know the irony is that we take a look at our watch, says, okay, I'm gonna set it. So you get your phone and you check the time. Okay, it's 8:12. My computer says it's 8:12. My atomic clock says it's 8:12, so I can now set my mechanical watch to 8:12. Okay, so both my iPhone and my computer are way more accurate than any other kind of timepiece I have in my house. I've got a quartz watch, couple quartz watches up on my wall. One is one for it's a FP Journe Chronomet Surveying, sort of one of the ones they put in the store. I was able to get one. Then I got a little clock with a cat who wags his tail and rolls his eyes. And they're both quartz and they're both very accurate. Más o menos, okay? But they're not as accurate as my computer nor my iPhone. So those are the in terms of accuracy, I don't think we're going to get any more. Now, should we try to make our mechanical watches more accurate? And I think, yeah, accuracy, I think, is an important part. But we've got to be, I mean, say, well, if we start putting it in silicon, you put in enough silicon, it's already been done. It's called a smartwatch, all right, or a quartz watch. That's already happened. It happened years ago. And so the challenge becomes how do we do that with traditional skill sets? Now, you have certain limitations. I know that how much watches are to produce. You can produce a really great watch for very little money using mass production. And this was one of the things, by the way, too, I think the part of the announcement by Omega that a lot of people overlooked, it wasn't so much that they were, well, it was, but I mean, it wasn't the news and the stories included a little line, okay, that I think a lot of people missed. On the one hand, they figured out how to adjust a silicon hairspring without breaking it because they're very brittle. Okay, uh, they're they're inflexible for the most part, but Omega figured out a way to at least some kind of adjustment. Perhaps not very much, but that's okay. They're in pretty good shape to begin with. But what they said that was essential for this to be important is that they figured out how to mass produce it. It wasn't just, some guys with super skills go in and they finally get it figured out and they put it in a prototype and it works. It's more of a proof of concept, but rather their big thing was how do you mass produce it? Okay, well, this is, I suppose, what I wanted to talk about this morning is, what's going on. I mean, should we really value that as figuring out a way to mass produce something using a metalloid, silicon, rather than a transitional metal, and saying, "Hey, boy, look what happened." Now, I'm again going back to the point of why silicon. Well, there were a number of reasons. First of all, silicon was less affected by heat and cold. Okay, in other words, you don't get I mean, heat and cold is going to affect any transitional metal. In fact, probably just about any element is going to have some kind of variation because of the heat and the cold. Okay, well, silicon does it less so than transitional metals. Second of all, it was I don't think it was anti-magnetic so much as non-magnetic. In other words, it wasn't affected by magnetic fields, and we are surrounded by magnetic fields. Everything, computer, my phone, everything has a magnetic field to it. Well, there, the solution that H. Moser came up with, or more precisely, precision engineering, that's part of H. Moser. They came up with something that was using a combination of niobium and titanium. They came up with a hairspring that the ones I have with it, don't seem to be affected at all by magnetic fields. In fact, both of them are very, very accurate. So it's something I'm not concerned about. Well, gee whiz, I better go out and get, I heard about this new silicon hairspring. I got silicon. I got a silicon up to here in a smartwatch. I got silicon to burn. Now, another thing, it's for a silicon hairspring, is that the heat and cold, non-magnetic. They're also too, the design and getting the right elements and combinations and so forth to get the silicon to work as a hairspring was no small task. There was a lot of research and development that went into that. But producing them is relatively cheap. If you take a look at the process that's used in making a regular hairspring, it's quite involved. But once you get you don't bake them in a microwave, but you get these sheets that come out like just any kind of silicon that are used in a microprocessor. And you punch them out, and you got your same thing with the silicon. And really, the production is not as expensive using that in the long run. Development costs, yes, those are expensive, but the other isn't. But development costs for both the hairspring using niobium and titanium, or in the case of Rolex, niobium and chromium, plus some other metals and processes that they use, much more intensive and expensive. Both George Daniels and his student Roger Smith, there were all of these skills that a watchmaker had to develop, and both Daniels and Smith mastered most of them. Neither one of them ever mastered making a hairspring. So I mean, it's not an easy task. It's a very hard thing to do, and it really both the Strawman hairspring and the what's it called, Parachrome hairspring at Rolex, these were developed to no small extent by the same guy. The guy working for Precision Engineering was also doing some of the development at Rolex. So, but they came up with a solution using transitional metals, and you can adjust them. Okay, so it's sort of like, okay, if you're going to go down the traditional road, uh, and you're not going to, start knocking out $10 quartz watches, what what are you trying to do? Well, if you're trying to make more accurate traditional metal mechanical watches with traditional materials, then there are lots of places to go. But on the other hand, you want to step over to silicon. You know, I lived in silicon for years. Then you're sort of like, well, we couldn't figure it out using transitional metals, so we're gonna use this. We're gonna use this other thing, and even though it's got some drawbacks, it, we're not going to. And one of the things I suppose that's unusual is that I sort of people say, well, you're a Luddite. Luddites were people who didn't trust machines, and they would break up machines during the early years of the Industrial Revolution in England. Well, this is not a matter of being a Luddite. I mean, rather what it is sort of like let's develop craftsmanship and skills rather than sort of let the machine do the whole thing. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about today. And while we all value accuracy, we've got it in our phones and our computers and every place around us. But if we want to have a mechanical watch working with what I'll call traditional methods. Now, the traditional methods include traditional materials and improving on those. I'm not saying they shouldn't be improved on, but you know, uh, let's not hook it up to a rocket ship. Okay, let's see what you got here. Um, Raised by DMT in Egypt. How you doing? Uh, Okay. Hi, Velvia man, Mr. Valju. I used to backpack in the Great Northwest. Temperatures range from 20 degrees to 85 degrees midday. Seiko Alpinist held up well. I bet it did. Uh, let's see. Dominic, friction and gravity are enemies of accuracy. They are. Um, Okay, let's see. Thomas, like George Daniel said, watchmaking in 32 different occupations in one. Exactly. One occupation, like I said, that Daniels never did master was making a hairspring. Hi, Dark Helmet. Uh, you should be on TikTok. I don't know why. Thomas, like George. Okay, let me see. Hey, Johannes Christians, how are you? Watchmaking should strive for accuracy, but not making it an absolute benchmark for watchmakers' worth. Mechanical watches are no longer tools to measure time, they are an art. Exactly. I mean, otherwise, look how much we pay for the blasted things. Um, even, you know, we had this watch is pretty much handmade. It's all Swiss. A bunch of us got together and we had it made to our what we wanted, and we did it at a very affordable price. And we did it by using nothing but the what we found to be the best watchmakers. Now, watchmaking involves a lot of individuals. Some did this, some did that. Fine, that was okay, but we wanted to be sure we had the best ones who were working on it, and I think we came up with that. And when I took this watch, sent it in for chronometer testing, it passed. It passed. In fact, the person who did it, this is the horological side. No, he said it passed in flying colors, and it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't it didn't go to COSC or anything else, but it met all of their measurements plus some other ones that the Horological Society had. So you do that. Um, will it lose time? Will it not be as accurate down the road? Sure. I don't care. I'll adjust it. I'll have a watchmaker adjust it. I'll figure out something. But the thing of it is that to me, it's really very much a work of horological art, both the movement as well as the case and everything else, and the dial. Let's see. Yeah, System 51 is an example that's mass produced. Um, I was looking at something at Tag Heuer, something about Tag Heuer. I've always had a fascination with Tag Heuer, and now that they have Carol Forestier Casapi as their top watchmaker. I thought, oh boy, this is going to be great. What I found out is that what she's working with, instead of working with silicon hairsprings, they're trying to make carbon ones. Now that's sort of a different argument, a carbon hairspring. My God, I don't know what process that would be involved in, but it sounds interesting. For the most part, though, they simply used ETAs, and they gave it all of these funny different names, but they ETA has a good solid base movement, and they all use them. And of course, they claim that they made them themselves. Well, we went to some people and they made one for us, so we knew what was being made without any claims that we had any kind of skill beyond having a great desire to have a watch. Why do watches with silicon hairsprings operate at a different rate than conventional? I don't know. I don't think they do, Dominic. I think you can set, from what I understand, you can set them to different rates. You had I was looking at an Omega, and Omega is owned by Swatch, and Swatch is using silicon hairsprings. And there were two different watches. Their Moon watch, uh, I, I forgot what the number was on the particular movement. It had both um, had a lot of things that weren't in the original Moon watch. They had the coaxial escapement. They had a see what else they had. They had a silicon hairspring, and it ran at 3 hertz. Then they had another one I was looking at, and it ran at 3.5 hertz. And so I think you can set up a silicon hairspring just like a regular hairspring for different frequencies, and this is how fast it goes back and forth. Um, at least that's my understanding. Now, if I'm wrong about it, you can correct me. Hi, AWD Turbo Power. Most of them are high beat, 28, yeah, are higher. As far as I know, it has to do with the resonant vibration frequencies of the metal. So silicon is closer to a ceramic. Yeah, it is. Um, it's a metalloid. I don't know I don't know how ceramics are composites, I think, but again, this is something I'm not sure about. Hi, Dim 131S. Uh, H50 ETA caliber Hamilton khaki field mechanical watches, impressive accuracy. Yeah, they do. Um, Floodham 99 point. Why did Bulova anti-gravity watch? What did I don't know, but it's a good question. I personally really like what Vincent Calabrese tried with the escapement. Might have some accuracy benefits if refined over time. Yeah, he has a really interesting thing. But I don't know where that's going on the escapement that he set up. But it is interesting. Hi, Howard. Tag Heuer caliber 002 is genuine in-house and was tags Mrs. culpable for having been caught some years ago passing it off as Seiko-based movement as in-house. Yeah, a lot of them do that. Here's the thing. This is it's not so much that ours is in-house or not in-house. I mean, Larique has no in-house. We go to people who do these things. And the point is that it's a good movement. I mean, uh, it's made by real watchmakers and put together by hand, pretty much. So we have. Let me see if I can show you what it looks like. What we're looking at is something that is we had them cut away as much as possible. The thing I really like is where they have most of the bridges and the uh, plates are simply little bitty things, so you don't have to mess with them. Uh, Langenheim, when Marco Lang was there, he developed a thing called the trigonal bridge. Even better, there are these little finger bridges. I don't know if you've ever seen a Georg. Oh, what a beautiful movement. You can see the wheel train, and they have these little finger um, bridges that are securing. They look like little bells that are securing the different the wheels in the gear train. Really amazing. Hey, thanks AWD turbo. Um, hey, Martin, how are you? Who could repair your Henry double hairspring? Moser no longer is in business. Martin, I don't know. So I read that the double hairspring. Well, one thing I did shortly after I got it, I wrote to H. Moser, and I asked him about, I forgot what it was. Oh, are they continuing it and so on and so forth? And an engineer replied to me. He said, "No, we're not." He said, "Those things are so expensive to produce." He said, "They're more complex to put together than a tourbillon, so we're not going to do it anymore. It's just too expensive." So I thought, "Oh, okay." Now, when I interviewed Edward Milan, I asked him. I said, "Hey, can I get my um, uh, Henry double hairspring serviced?" And he said, "Yeah, just send it in and they'll service it for you." But Martin, if they they disappear, I'm out of luck. Period. I don't think anybody outside of a very few people at Precision Engineering would be able to do it. Now maybe they could, I could run down someone who could do it, but don't know who. Brand self movements layout patterns are all the time. Okay, Soprod uses Seiko designs as well. Yeah, the Soprod uses, I think, a 4L as a base for their Soprod A10. Fabulous movement, just fantastic. I love it. This is another one that seems to just keep impossibly good time. My God, my time is up. Sorry, I picked it up. Let me see if I can take this off. Now I better not try. What this is a Vaussure movement. A friend of mine, he was going to use it. He's buying a bunch of these for a project. Now you have to, in order to get a Vaussure movement, you have to buy at least 25, and they're about $1,000 a pop for the movement, a little more now. And so, rather than popping down $25,000, I asked the guy. I said, "Hey, listen, could you order an extra one, part of that thing?" He said, "Sure." So I just bought it from him. But that is extremely good movement, and a lot of really good watches use a Vaussure, even though it's not in house. Um, I would rather buy a watch that has something like a Vaussure movement in it, and so that we're using Vaussure movements rather than one they somehow cobble together an in-house movement that's 95% at ETA. Nothing wrong with ETA, but in terms of the quality of a movement, those things vary all over the place. Okay, guys, listen, I just noticed that I ran out of time. Um, I don't know where the rancher is. The rancher always tells me my time is up, so I, he's he's AOL right now. He's okay though. I talked to him the other day. All right, let me finish up these last ones. Let me see if I can find something. Um, okay, great. All right, guys, listen. I'll be back at 4 o'clock um, Eastern Standard Time. I'll be back 4 o'clock New York time. I'll have an announcement about it. What I'd like to talk about is, where do our values land? Somewhere between quality is measured by accuracy, and quality is measured by craftsmanship. Okay. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you this afternoon. Take care now.